Salute, salute, salute. What it is, what it do, what's happening, man. Bow. It's Nocturnal Thoughts. Blessings, blessings, blessings. Peace, love. From Nocturnal Thoughts to everybody out there subscribed that's listening to the sound of my voice, man. Salute. What it is, what it do. I want to talk about Devin Haney's performance against Regis Progress, but I also want to talk about Gervonta Davis and his competition and Shakur Stevenson and his competition. Those three guys right now, there is no blueprint on how to defeat these three fighters. There's only blueprints on to compete with them. Now let's start at the bottom. Shakur Stevenson, he didn't look great in his last performance against Dos Santos. Dos Santos has some power, has some speed, quick twitch muscle and everything like that. Shakur Stevenson did what he had to do to get the victory, but he did not put on a spectacular performance. He was criticized and criticized and criticized because he was too defensive. It brought down his stock somewhat as far as him being able to say he's an entertaining, polarizing, captivating fighter. You know what I'm saying? But at least not forget, he had a great performance against Oscar Valdez. And Oscar Valdez was coming off of a great performance against Miguel Berchelt. He had a great performance against Yoshino in his debut at 135. Then he goes in and has a bad performance against Dos Santos. And you're only as good, only as remembered as your last fight. Gervonta Davis. But my point is this. Out of those guys, nobody showed a blueprint on how to defeat Shakur Stevenson. How to compete with him, but not how to defeat him. I thought that Jamel Herring would show paths of victory against Shakur Stevenson, and he was dominating. Shakur Stevenson dominated Jamel Herring, dominated Oscar Valdez, similar to the way that Devin Haney just dominated Regis Progress, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. Now, let's talk about Gervonta Davis. You're only as good as your last performance, and his last performance that I could remember was against Kid Flash, Ryan Garcia. You know what I'm saying? Little baby Captain Hook Jr. He knocked him out with a body shot. Very captivating, big fight, big build-up, big bank, big money. But the competition, Ryan Garcia, the level of competition, you know what I'm saying? We know that Ryan Garcia had some deficiencies in his ability. He said he wasn't focused. He dealt with some depression. He dealt with some discipline issues, and he was complaining about, you know, the rehydration clause. He wasn't 100%. But that was Gervonta Davis' last performance. Before that, he dominated another Garcia, Hector Garcia, knocked him out, hit him in the head, and had him losing his consciousness and losing his eyesight, and he kind of quit in the corner. Then he had a fight against Rolly Romero. I'm going backwards. I'm walking it backwards. He had a fight against Rolly Romero. Dangerous, sloppy, awkward fighter. Not a lot of style, just raw power, big mouth, a big build up to the fight, big fight, and Rolly Romero got stopped. You're only as good as your last performance. The only the performance that you can say was a competitive, on the verge of controversy, was the Isaac Pitbull Cruz, where Gervonta Davis hurt his hand, fighting a shorter guy. He's used to punching up. Mario Barrios. Leo Santa Cruz had height on him. Most of his competitors are taller than him. The only blueprint on being competitive with Gervonta Davis would be Mario Barrios, or really a Isaac Pitbull Cruz, who went the distance. Some people still, they don't want to see the rematch, but some, you know, his coach and everything like that was trying to build up the rematch. Isaac Pitbull Cruz been busy ever since then. You know what I'm saying? He got famous off of going the distance with Gervonta Davis, who I say Isaac Pitbull Cruz was a late replacement, and he was supposed to be fighting Rolly Romero that fight. So you get a replacement, you go to shorter guy, a guy with a little bit more dynamic and skill than a guy who's already about to fight. There's no blueprint on how to beat Gervonta Davis, only to compete with him. You look at Devin Haney, the dream. Let's walk it back with him. You only remember as good as your last performance. And his last performance was his most spectacular, dominating performance he's had so far in his career that I can remember against his most dangerous competitor that I can remember. Regis the Rubaru Progress. Hard hitting, natural 140 pounder, power in both hands, raw, awkward, southpaw. I thought he would have moments. I thought he would have moments where he would put some adversity, some resistance. He might even clip Devin Haney and put him on the canvas. Those moments did not happen whatsoever. Made me change any doubt I had about Devin Haney going into the future. His fortitude, his IQ, his chin wasn't even touched. You know what I'm saying? He was on another level. He was on a ghost mode. He was on float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. The hands can't hit what the eyes can't see. He just wasn't even there to be hit, but he was right there to be hit. That was a boxing virtuoso. That was a boxing clinic. That was a masterclass performance. And that was his last performance against a dangerous guy. You can say, some people going to naysay and say he wasn't in his prime. He showed weaknesses in his last performance against Cirillo. But you can go through boxing history and see plenty of guys get credit for fighting guys that weren't necessarily in their prime. Rocky Marciano, undefeated record. To this day, he's going to be always listed high on a lot of boxing pundits, greatest of all time. And we would say some of the guys he beat, like Archie Moore, was past their prime. Even Muhammad Ali, when Muhammad Ali fought Sonny Liston, we technically don't even know how old Sonny Liston was in that fight. He's somewhere maybe even in his 40s. We don't know. His birth date was not really documented the right way. You can, like we always say, Devin Haney would have his Floyd Money Mayweather moment. And Floyd Mayweather moment, he had many moments. One of his most dominating performances was against Arturo Gatti. Arturo Gatti was not in his prime. But we don't look at it that way. We just look at it as a complete shutout and domination. It don't matter where Arturo Gatti is. We're just looking at the resume, the progress, the progression of a fighter. So I look at Devin Haney and I see the progression. I see him progressing and learning from going from Lomachenko, which was a tough, competitive, close fight, to Regis Prograis. We can see now in hindsight, 2020, Monday morning quarterback, you know what I'm saying? We can see that after fighting Lomachenko, Regis Prograis probably seemed to be moving in slow motion to Devin Haney's perception now, because he elevated and learned from what he took fighting against Lomachenko, going in there against Regis Prograis, going in there 140 pounds, going in there healthier, feeling stronger, feeling more like his body had more nourishment and wasn't as depleted. You could see that Devin Haney was able to stay focused without having any moments of cloudiness or haze, or having any moments that made you question his abilities moving forward. So there's no blueprint on how to beat Devin Haney, only to compete with Devin Haney. And to compete with Devin Haney, you would say the most competitive fight I've seen him be in was against Lomachenko. He dominated most of his other fights and only had moments of, adversity, maybe one or two moments, but for the most part, he would dominate. Lomachenko, there were more than one or two moments of adversity, but he did enough to hold on to his championship. And he learned from it, and he moved forward, and now he's put himself in a position where he has options. You know what I'm saying? He has choices. He has a selection. You hear Seibra Matias, I apologize if I said that name wrong. You hear Gary Antoine Russell, you know what I'm saying? You hear Teofimo Lopez. By the way, let me mention Teofimo Lopez, his last performance against Josh Taylor, who, like I said, you can't just say wasn't in his prime. Josh Taylor, I don't think was in his prime. I think Josh Taylor and Regis Prograis met at a point where they were more in their prime, but that's not to take away from what Teofimo Lopez did against Josh Taylor. That's not to take away from what Devin Haney did to Regis Prograis. I think Josh Taylor had a questionable performance against Jack Catterall, go back to the drawing board. I think he was a little healthier, not in his prime, big for the weight class, but I think he was game. I think he still has some juice in the tank. I think he was a dangerous fighter when he fought against Teofimo Lopez, and Teofimo Lopez just disarmed him. Same for Devin Haney. Regis Prograis might not have been in his absolute prime, but I'm looking at Regis Prograis in the performance that he had against Devin Haney, and I say even when he was in his prime a couple of years ago, that version of him would not have done anything different in my mind that can be proven or quantified against Devin Haney. There was just different levels. So I said all that to say this: nobody between Shakur Stevenson, he's had a boring fight, but he's had fights that he's dominated. Gervonta Tank Davis, he had a close fight, but he's knocked out everybody else. Devin Haney has had a competitive, controversial fight with Lomachenko, but he just put on a dominant, spectacular masterclass performance against a dangerous Regis Prograis. There is no blueprint on how to defeat these guys, only a blueprint to compete, and they need to compete against each other before I can say who would win between those top three guys. And then you can sprinkle in Teofimo Lopez, who had a questionable performance against Sandor Martin, who lost against Kambosos, and that's why I say there's a blueprint on how to beat Teofimo, because Kambosos beat him. Sandor Martin competed with him and had great moments, controversial victory, but Teofimo Lopez made a resurgence and looked good against Josh Taylor, who was dangerous. Also, I was going to say, I think that's it. I don't want to stretch this video out too long. I don't want to sprinkle too much game on y'all right now. They got to compete against each other. You know what I'm saying? Shakur Stevenson, Gervonta Tank Davis, and Devin Haney. I still would like to see how, and really, to be honest, really, Devin Haney and Gervonta Tank Davis. Those two things right there, really, that's a captivating fight. When I look at everybody Gervonta Tank Davis has fought, his skills, his natural attributes, his explosive power, his ring IQ, and then I match it up against Devin Haney, his having better power at 140, his educated footwork, his jab, his all-around boxing ring IQ, his punch selection, him being on another level, more mature, starting to come into, not falling into making mistakes, trying to fight outside of his, not abilities, but trying to please the crowd or stay in a pocket too long or exchange 50-50 too long, but getting in, getting out, sticking and moving, and just, being a masterclass boxer versus Gervonta Tank Davis. When I line up their resumes, when I line up their attributes, when I line up their physicalities, when I line up their strengths and their weaknesses, it's still pretty much even Steven 50-50. And that is intriguing, even when you do the outside of the ring build up. When you talk about the finances, when you talk about who's the biggest draw, who's the face of boxing, who can talk the most shit, who gonna have the best camp, it's gonna bring all those elements. I think when I bring in all the elements, even though Bill Haney can, gift the gab with the best of them, I think when you bring in the elements, I don't know, because sometimes Mayweather can come in and he can cast a shadow over Gervonta Tank Davis, and that it kind of bring down the shine of Gervonta Tank Davis. But Leonard Ellerbe do a great job at being a mouthpiece for Leonard Ellerbe has a great job of being a good mouthpiece for Gervonta Tank Davis, and he knows things about Devin because he was around Devin. Devin been around all those guys since he was a little kid, so he knows things about Devin that he might be. It'll be Calvin has talked with. I remember one time it was on the Boxing Voice where Calvin called in and was talking to that one dude from the Boxing Voice, Ness. And our Bill had called in and was talking to him, and then Calvin called in, and Calvin got off the line, and they got some built-in drama there. There's history there. They've sparred. They've been talking about this fight for a long time. Gervonta Tank Davis versus Devin Haney. To me, if they don't over-marinate this thing, it could be the biggest fight of boxing in a very, very long time. What Terrence Bud Crawford and Errol Spence had the potential to be. But I feel like great fight, great outcome. Salute to Terrence Bud Crawford. But that fight over marinated and it just had things that took away from it over the years. To me, there's no reason why Gervonta Davis and Devin Haney should not be fighting this time by next year. There's no reason. No, matter of fact, mid-year, they should be fighting each other. And if they don't, they probably never will. They probably won't. And if you wait too long, it's going to over-marinate. And people are already saying that Devin Haney should move on from the idea of fighting Gervonta Davis. There'd be too much back and forth trying to decide weight, how much weight, rehydration, and money, and A class and B class, who's did this and who resume did this and who's the attraction, and blah, blah. It's going to be too much distress. Anyways, it's Nocturnal Thoughts, man. I'm signing out. Bow, bow, bow. Salute. New to the channel, go ahead and sub up, man. I'm gone. Salute.